Story 1. A while back, I was exploring a forest, a little off the usual path, when I came across a very strong, sweet scent. Driven by curiosity, I moved some branches aside and was shocked to find a deceased person. It was clear that they had been there for some time, as nature had begun to take its course. I immediately notified the police and was instructed to stay there until they arrived. As it was quite remote, it took the officers some time to reach me, and by then, it had grown dark. Waiting there, alone with the silence of the forest and the presence of the person, was unsettling. It was later discovered that the person had taken their own life. The experience lingered with me for a while, haunting my dreams, where the person would appear and speak to me, expressing discontent for having been disturbed. Though it was likely just my own thoughts, it was a deeply unsettling experience at the time. Story 2. Around 2 years ago, I found myself driving back from a family gathering late at night. The journey was a good 2 hours, and I couldn't stay overnight since I had work the next day. The route I took was lined with thick bushes and towering trees. It looked like something straight out of a spooky movie. I'd been on the road for about 45 minutes when exhaustion hit me out of the blue. You know that sudden wave of sleepiness that can just overwhelm you? That's what I felt. Despite my tiredness, I couldn't spot a safe place to pull over and rest, so I had to keep pushing through. Realizing that a rest stop wasn't in the cards and my drowsiness wasn't subsiding, I made a questionable decision. I steered my car off the road, onto the grass, and behind some bushes. My aim was to keep my car out of sight from other drivers who occasionally passed by. It wasn't a deserted road, as I'd see another car every few minutes. I glanced at the clock, etched the time 11:22 p.m. into my memory, and let sleep take over. Sometime later, a scratching noise jolted me awake. I checked the time. It was 11:50 p.m. The noise quickly ceased, and my exhaustion took over, so I didn't bother to check and drifted back to sleep. However, at 12:40 a.m., I awoke again to that scratching sound, but this time it persisted. The thought that it might be an animal felt off, especially since it came back after nearly an hour. Peering into the rearview mirror, I caught a quick sight of something disappearing into the woods. In that chilling moment, my mind raced to the urban legend of the hook-handed killer, the one rumored to prey on unsuspecting people in their cars. With that terrifying thought, I didn't wait around to see what it was. I started my car and sped away as fast as I could. Not far ahead, the road curved sharply, and as I rounded the bend, there was a car parked just off the road, its driver's door wide open. I slowed down to check if anyone needed help, but the car seemed empty. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw nothing at first. Then suddenly, a man came running around the corner, shouting frantically, "Hey! Hey you! Get out of your car! Now!" His intensity set off every alarm bell in my head, and without hesitation, I floored it and didn't look back. I never encountered the man again. The takeaway from this harrowing experience: never sleep on the side of a seemingly abandoned road. Story 3. One summer night, a friend and I decided to take a midnight bike ride. As the evening came to a close, we parted ways, and I had a short 2-block ride back home. Due to construction, I had to ride on the sidewalk, which was empty at that late hour. Nearing the corner where I'd turn onto my street, I encountered a man walking alone. He was around his 40s, a bit unkempt, but not homeless looking. The sidewalk was quite narrow, and I wanted to avoid startling him, so when I was a few feet away, I called out, "Hey, behind you!" to let him know I was there. He turned around with an unexpectedly angry look on his face. I quickly turned onto my street, but to my dismay, the man began to follow me, yelling threats and insults. Fearing for my safety and not wanting him to find out where I lived, I decided to circle the block again. But the truly frightening moment came when I looped back and saw him standing on my front steps, staring intently into the street as if he somehow knew that's where I lived. He noticed me as I rode past again, but this time he remained silent. Not taking any chances, I rode back to my friend's place for safety. Unfortunately, a couple of days later, my bike was stolen from the alley next to their house. Story 4. When I was a kid, my parents were pretty cool about letting me camp out in the living room on weekends. My sister needed her sleep, and I loved the freedom to watch TV into the wee hours, though I'd usually doze off, thanks to the late-night shows. One night, I awoke abruptly, feeling that prickling sensation you get when something's not right. I sat up straight and looked out the front window. Living in rural Georgia, we had more trees than you could count, and that night, bathed in moonlight, I spotted the outline of someone perched in a tree. Right at that moment, our family dog charged to the window, growling and baring its teeth at the figure through the glass. In a state of panic, I raced to my parents' bedroom to tell them there was someone lurking outside. My dad, protective as ever, took something to defend himself and rushed out with our dogs, ready to confront the intruder. I stayed back, shaking in my mom's embrace until my dad returned, assuring us that he didn't find anyone and that it was time for bed. I opted to sleep in my own room that night and shared the scary encounter with my sister. My dad patrolled the house, coffee in hand, as we tried to settle down. Just as I was beginning to relax, I saw him again. The man was outside my window. In the dim moonlight, he gestured for me to be quiet, then turned and ran off. I was so shaken, I cried for what seemed like an eternity. Story 5. My home has a unique layout, set further back from the street compared to others. The sidewalk stretches along the living room and ends at the front porch, leading right into it. The living room has large, non-opening windows that let in lots of light, but sacrifice a bit of privacy. With my family away on vacation, I took the opportunity to enjoy some drinks alone. I ended up passing out on the living room couch around 9 in the evening, too anxious to make it to my bedroom. The couch is situated directly under these big windows. I woke up without knowing what disturbed me, feeling an intense chill. Then, I heard pounding. It was coming from right above me. I stayed still, barely opening my eyes to look up, and there was someone at the window, banging on the glass. I managed to glance at the cable box, while remaining motionless. It was around 3 a.m. The banging persisted, then abruptly ceased, but I didn't dare move. Then it started up again, this time from 2 different places, one at the window and another at the front door. The relentless pounding wouldn't stop. It lasted for about 40 minutes before it finally ended. That incident was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had, leaving me on edge long afterwards. The next day, I reached out to a friend, hoping for some company for the remaining days of the week, but his half-joking response was, "What for? So we can both be murdered in our sleep?" Thank you for joining us on this ghostly ride through the top 5 scary stories that have chilled us to the bone. Do you have a scary story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We'd love to read what terrors you've encountered. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.